So I'm Ali, I'm a sobriety coach. I run the Art of Sobriety, and I've come here to really deepen my understanding of yoga to see how I can apply that into my work as a sobriety coach, just to better help people have tools to regulate their nervous system.
Okay. Right.
So it's come in and out of my life. I think that was another secondary drive for me to do a YTT, was also to develop my own understanding of the sort of the practice and the discipline of yoga. It's something that I've always struggled to have a consistent practice with, but when I've been in flow with it, I've loved it. So now I have a deeper knowledge of how I can kind of cultivate my own practice, as well as how I can use it as a tool to kind of teach and serve. It's been a bit of a double win for me. It's been a bit of everything, really. You know, we've had ups and downs and highs and lows. There's been moments where we've been laughing uncontrollably. There's been moments where I've kind of regressed back to a teenager in the back of a classroom when we've been studying with textbooks. So it's been a bit of everything, but it's not been what I expected. I didn't really know what I was expecting coming into it, but there's been so much more sitting in circle and kind of looking at the ways that the yoga philosophy can like integrate into our own lives, and understanding people's different personal experiences with yoga, and really all of that side of, I suppose, more of the side of yoga outside of creating shapes on a mat. And it's really broadened my understanding of like what the full 8 limbs of yoga are, and, you know, the asanas and the shapes that we create only being like 1/8 of what yoga actually is. So it's really, really deepened my understanding of those other 7 aspects of yoga. Like, we were talking about this yesterday, and I don't know if it was my own limiting belief, but like maybe I was telling myself this story that, yeah, you'll go and do the 200-hour yoga teacher training, but surely you can't just come out of that and be ready to stand up in front of a class full of people. Surely there's further development, or, you know, you'd need to gain experience. But then that was just my limiting beliefs. How do you get experience without standing up in front of a class full of strangers and guiding them through a flow? So actually, where we've got into the back end of the 200 hours and there's been more opportunities to stand in front of people and guide them through flows and adjust their positions, I actually feel way more equipped coming out of this 200-hour training than I thought I would be. Like, I've already committed to run a yoga class next weekend, a retreat that's happening up in the north of Bali, and I'm assisting on a retreat that's going to be in India in a few months' time. And I haven't had any hesitation to kind of take up those opportunities. Whereas I thought before coming into the 200-hour, I thought there would be way, way, way more development that I would need after that before I felt ready to go out in the world and not have imposter syndrome about being a newly qualified teacher. I feel more than equipped with what Alex has walked us through to be able to hold space for a group of strangers and guide them through a nice flow. She's full of life. She's flexible with her teaching methods. I think obviously her background in teaching very young kids has come in handy, where there might be certain things that, you know, isn't really landing with me. And I think, yeah, her skill to be able to hold a room full of young children is probably quite a helpful skill, holding a room full of adults learning yoga. But she's made certain things fun. She's really brought in a lot of her life stories and helped us kind of bring out certain life stories that we have and how that's relevant to our yoga. So it hasn't just felt like yoga is this thing that stands on its own. It's got a much more sort of helped me create my personal connection to it, which is going to help with my storytelling and my connection with people that are in a class with me. So she's been very, very open and vulnerable and personal, as well as insanely knowledgeable. I think she's incredibly intellectual when it comes to everything to do with yoga, and the people that she's brought in to kind of assist with some of the facilitation were unbelievable. So I wouldn't have said that I was particularly advanced at yoga at all. And I don't think you would need to be coming into this. And that's one of the beliefs that I've had to shift. Like, I'm very aware that as I go to teach, there will be people in my class that have a greater range of motion than me. They're more flexible than me. They can get into more advanced asanas than me, but that doesn't mean that I can't hold the space for them to guide them through their practice. Like, I don't need to be the best in the room to be the leader. It's a very different skill set. And just because you can get yourself into some funky shapes, that doesn't necessarily mean you'd be a good yoga teacher. So I think that was something that I had to separate the two from. And I can see how that might be something that would hold other people back. They would think they would need to be more advanced in their personal practice before stepping into the role of a teacher. But I always kind of liken it to sport. Like the coach on the sideline is probably the least talented football player. All the talent is out on the field and he's the one that's guiding it. So it was a belief that I held, which I'm glad I worked through, because if I'd have waited another 2 years until my personal practice was at a more advanced level, then I wouldn't be able to go out and do the things that I'm planning on doing when I leave here. So there's no reason why it wouldn't work for someone who had a more advanced practice, but I would encourage anyone who's maybe telling themselves that story that they need to be more advanced in their personal practice before they came here, just to put that to one side and step into that. If the calling is for them to investigate what their life might look like as a yoga teacher, I'd encourage them to jump on a YTT. Exactly. I think, yes, standing up like we have today in my assessment, there's going to be 13 people in the room. I think the skill of standing up in front of 13 strangers and being the leader and, you know, commanding a room, holding that space, like those are skills that for me, you know, if I need to pitch for investment or I need to do anything else, like there's so much crossover just from being able to be confident in your abilities and deliver clearly, give clear instructions. Like even if you're a backseat driver giving someone directions, like the ability to cue people. I think there's so many skills that I've cultivated that overlap that are going to be really useful in my life.